The klaxon blared across the airbase like a war drum. Captain Eli Ridge Carter dropped his coffee mid-sip as the urgent voice of command filled the ready room. Unidentified aircraft breaching restricted airspace. NORAD confirms no transponder. Possible threat. Scramble, scramble, scramble. Adrenaline surged. Ridge threw on his helmet and ran toward Hangar 3, where his F-22 Raptor awaited with engines prepped and crew already backing away. His wingman, LT Mason Frey Mills, was a step behind, checking his weapon system mid-jog. Within 90 seconds, both Raptors screamed down the runway and lifted into the fading light of the Pacific sky. As the jets climbed, Ridge locked into protocol. Sword 2, this is Sword 1. Visualize threat vector? Affirmative, Frey replied. Target at Angels 4-5, bearing northeast. No response to hails. The aircraft in question was high, fast, and wrong. It wasn't just the lack of a transponder or its defiance of the no-fly zone near a sensitive naval installation. It was the way it moved erratic, dipping, then regaining altitude like it was flying manually, almost. Injured. Command patched through. Engage visual confirmation. Hold fire until authorized. Ridge narrowed his eyes. Copy. At Mach 1.7, the Raptor's closed distance fast. Ridge's HUD lit up. There it was. A sleek, dark shape against the golden-orange horizon. Unmarked, angular, possibly stealth-based, but oddly configured. Definitely not commercial. Could be Russian, Chinese, or worse, something that had no nation behind it. They hailed the aircraft again. This is the United States Air Force. You are entering restricted airspace. Identify yourself and alter course immediately. Silence. Again. Unidentified. Aircraft, this is your final warning. Respond on guard frequency, or you will be considered hostile. Still nothing. Weapon systems came online. Ridge's thumb hovered over the master arm switch. Protocol was simple now. No reply, no identification, no deviation. Hostile classification authorized. Engage. He exhaled slowly, steadying his breathing. Frey, I've got tone, he said. Got it too. Waiting on your lead. Ridge initiated lock. A soft beep sounded. In his headset, target acquired. Then, it came. A voice, faint, female, calm. This is Shadowhawk. Stand down. Ridge froze. He knew that voice. Say again, he whispered, eyes darting over his instruments. Ridge, it's me, Shadowhawk. Don't engage? He blinked. His heart pounded louder than the twin jet turbines, roaring behind him. Impossible. Double quotes command. We've got transmission from the bogey. Identified herself as, he stopped, then said it aloud, Shadowhawk. A long pause, static crackled. Then command responded, low and tight. Repeat. Did you say Shadowhawk? Ridge didn't answer. His mind was spiraling. Shadowhawk was real. Shadowhawk was dead. Lieutenant Kara Voss. Cody name Shadowhawk. Elite pilot. Classified operations. Lost over Belarus 3 years ago during an unsanctioned NATO mission. No wreckage. No signals. Presumed Kia. Everyone moved on, except Ridge. Hadn't just flown with her, he'd trusted her with his life. She'd been more than a wingman. She was the one pilot who never broke under pressure, who could outfly anyone in any machine. She was brilliant, fierce, almost mythic. And now her voice was echoing in his cockpit. This isn't a trick, the voice said again. I'm compromised, but I've got something critical. You shoot me down, you bury it forever. He's targeting. System blinked red, still locked. The computer didn't care about ghosts. Frey's voice crackled through the combs. Sword 1, you're not firing? Ridge took a breath. Stand by. Command came through again, tense and clipped. Ridge, confirm target status. Engage unless otherwise instructed. We cannot verify that call sign. I can, Ridge muttered. He clicked open a secure line military encrypted. Point to point. You said it once, Ridge said quietly. Before we went dark over Sarajevo. Your last phrase. There was a pause. Then, if I burn forward. He closed his eyes. That was her dot. No impostor could have known that phrase. It wasn't in any file. It was something she whispered. Into her comes when the radar locked onto her, and they both thought it was the end. If I burn forward. She laughed afterward like it was nothing. He looked again at her aircraft. Burn marks along the hull. Irregular engine configuration. Definitely not standard issue. More like something scavenged. Or stolen. Something kept alive only by sheer force of will. Frey called again. Sword One, you good? We still weapons hot? No, Ridge said firmly. We're standing down. What? You heard me. Back off. She's not a threat. You disobeying orders? Ridge hesitated. I'm rewriting them. Frey didn't respond. But a second later, his raptor peeled back, circling high and wide. Command was furious. Sword. One, you are breaching protocol. Ridge cut the channel. He only kept the private line open. Shadowhawk, he said, trying to keep the tremor out of his voice. What the hell are you doing here? Her reply was low, controlled. Not here, not in the air. I'm heading to Groom Lake. Escort me in, Ridge, please. That please landed hard. He had questions. So many. But the skies weren't safe, and the longer they hovered, the more likely. Command would send another squadron, this time with orders that didn't allow for second chances. Ridge throttled back, pulling alongside her dark jet. Her aircraft was like nothing he'd ever seen. Sharper than any fighter, lighter on the turns, but patched with quick repair panels like it had been through hell. He noticed it now holes near the tail. Asymmetrical burn on the starboard wing. This wasn't just a homecoming. It was an emergency landing. She was bringing something back from the dead. As they banked toward Nevada. Ridge glanced once more across the sky at the woman who shouldn't exist. Shadowhawk was alive. And she wasn't alone in that jet. She was. Carrying the weight of something big, something heavy enough to silence generals and make pilots disobey. And Ridge knew, right then, his life would never be the same. The air inside Ridge's cockpit felt thinner now, despite the oxygen mask pressed to his face. His hands rested lightly on the throttle, but his thoughts were spiraling. Shadowhawk. That name hadn't crossed his lips in nearly 3 years. Not since they'd pulled her profile from the squadron board. Not since the formal report. Pilot, LT, Kara Voss. Status, presumed Kier. Mission, classified. She was gone. Everyone moved on. Or tried to. But there she was flying point in a ghost aircraft, bleeding smoke from the tail, and carving a line toward Groom Lake. Like her fuel would run out any second. Ridge was flying beside a memory that shouldn't exist. Say something, Ridge, Kara's voice said, quieter now. Not the broadcast tone from earlier. This was personal. Almost a whisper. I thought you were dead. I almost was, she replied. That didn't explain anything. Not the aircraft, not. The missing years, not why she was being hunted by her own country. Frey came on the comms again, his voice tight. Sword One, I need clarity here. Who is she? This real or some deep fake trap? Ridge hesitated. She's real. She's Kara Voss. Shadowhawk. You're damn sure? I flew combat with her. There's no mistaking that voice. Frey didn't answer, but he didn't press his lock again either. That said enough. The sun dipped lower, throwing long orange shadows across the desert horizon as they crossed into Nevada airspace. The Groom Lake Test Facility, Area 51 to the outside world, was still over 80 miles out. Where have you been, Kara? Ridge finally asked. Off the map. That jet ... it's not ours. I've never seen anything like it. You're not supposed to. That's supposed to reassure me? She let out a dry laugh. No, just letting you know how deep this rabbit hole goes. Ridge tightened his grip on the controls. I watched your funeral, he said suddenly. Closed casket. No answers. Your mother wore that green jacket you always hated. Kara went silent. I stood at the hangar wall, Ridge continued. Looked at your photo with the black ribbon on it and wondered if I should have gone in after you. She responded finally. You would have died. We both would have. That what they told you? No, she said. That's what I lived. Before he could ask more, his radar chirped. 3 bogies, fast movers, had launched from Nellis Air Force Base, heading straight toward them. Ridge switched to encrypted. Tactical channel. Command has sent backup, he said. ETA 3 minutes. They don't know what I know. They'll fire, she said, unless you convince them not to. Ridge swallowed hard. Shadowhawk had been trained for covert work, deep infiltration, zero trace. Her death had always felt too convenient, too scripted. Now it made sense. She'd gone underground, but not on a rogue mission. No, if she was coming back, it meant she'd reached the end of something massive. Give me something, he said. A reason I can give them not to shoot you out of the sky. If I talk over open air, I die. You know that. He did. NSA, CIA, Air Force intel, none of them operated in the clear. If she spoke too much, someone listening could triangulate, intercept, erase. I'm flying a stolen prototype, she admitted. Wasn't built by our people. Wasn't meant to be returned. They'll want it buried, with me inside. Ridge tried to keep up. You stole enemy tech? No, I stole our tech, she said. Bet we sold to people we weren't supposed to. Before he could process that, her tone sharpened. You're about to get hailed. Seconds later, command cut through. Sword 1, this is command. Additional Raptors inbound. Take defensive posture. Unidentified aircraft classified hostile. Orders are to engage if deviation continues. Frey whispered, they're going to light her up. Ridge flipped back to Kara. If I tell them to stand down, I need leverage. You'll have it when I land. Too late. She paused. Then, softly. Do you trust me? The question hit him in the chest like a missile. Did he? After 3 years of silence, of assuming she was gone, of watching her parents fold a flag over an empty box, did he trust her? He looked to his left. Her canopy caught the last glint of sunlight. Inside, her silhouette didn't waver. She was flying straight and true, even with death closing in from 3 directions. I trust you, he said. He switched back to command. Sword 1 to command. Recommend stand down. Pilot has identified as Shadowhawk. Former covert asset. Confirming visual, audio, and call sign authentication. A beat. Negative. Command replied. No such asset in database. Do not interfere. Escort returning Raptors or be reassigned. Reassigned was code. It meant court-martial. It meant grounding. Maybe prison? Ridge made his choice. Command, be advised any engagement on my vector will be met with intercept block. This pilot is under my protection until debrief. There was a long pause. Longer than any pause should be in a chain of command. Then, Sword 1, confirm defiance of direct order. I confirm protection of an American pilot with intel critical to national defense, Ridge said calmly. Recommend blackout until debrief complete. Frey gasped in his headset. You're going to burn for this. No, Ridge said. I'm going to make sure she gets home. The second squadron's radar signature appeared, 3 Raptors flying fast and low. Less than 60 seconds out. Hold formation, Ridge told Kara. Let me fly lead. He cut altitude and pushed forward, putting himself between the approaching jets and her damaged craft. 3 shadowy birds streaked past him, then looped into a defensive perimeter. His radio lit up with coded hails. He ignored them, not then, miraculously. Command relented. Shadowhawk cleared for escort to Groom Lake. No visual records, no comms relays. This conversation never happened. Kara's breath hitched. Ridge didn't say anything. He just kept flying. In the distance, a thin ribbon of runway shimmered beneath the dying sun. They were going home. The heat shimmered off the Nevada desert as Kara's aircraft touched down on the cracked tarmac of Groom Lake. The Raptor escort stayed high, circling like vultures, silent and watchful. Ridge followed her in, wheels skimming the asphalt with surgical precision. Behind them, a wall of dust lifted into the fading sun. Black SUVs were already waiting near the hangars. No markings, no license plates. Men in desert camo and mirrored sunglasses stood rigid by the doors. No salutes, no greetings, just cold readiness. Ridge had landed here once before, years back during a test flight. The place hadn't changed, still felt like a forgotten piece of the world, sealed in classified concrete. Kara taxied her jet to a halt near Hangar 14, the farthest from the base's main line. It hadn't been used in years. Ridge watched as her cockpit opened with a hiss of hydraulics, releasing smoke, and the faint scent of scorched electronics. She climbed out slowly, one boot at a time, her helmet tucked under her arm. She looked exhausted, not just physically, existentially worn down. Her face was harder than he remembered, eyes a little deeper set. But she still moved like a fighter. Pilot deliberate, measured, never unsure. Ridge shut down his own systems and descended. Before he could approach, 2 agents stepped between them. Captain Carter, one said, voice neutral. You're to remain with your aircraft. She requested I escort her, Ridge replied. You've completed that. Stand down, Kara intervened. He stays. He's the only one who didn't shoot me down. That made the agents pause. After a short standoff, one of them nodded stiffly. Ridge stepped forward. Where's the intel? Asked the second agent. Kara reached into a flight suit pocket and produced a sealed black titanium drive no bigger than a pen cap. She held it up like it weighed 100 pounds. This contains everything, she said. Schematics, correspondence, audio feeds, all of it. She turned to Ridge and handed it to him directly. You're the only one I trust not to erase. It? The agents bristled, but didn't interfere. Kara's voice lowered. I wasn't just sent into Belarus 3 years ago to track enemy movements. I was sent to track friendly movements. Ridge frowned. Our own people? She nodded. That crash? It wasn't enemy fire. It was a drone, one of ours. They wanted me gone before I uncovered who was selling classified weapons to foreign actors. I barely survived. The intel you're holding proves who pulled the trigger and who gave the order. Why didn't you come back sooner? I couldn't. They'd have buried me before I touched U.S. soil. Ridge looked at the drive. And now? Now it's too big to bury. Behind them, the hangar doors screeched open. Inside, lights flickered on to reveal a debrief chamber surrounded by guards, computers, and what looked like a mobile server vault. A major from the Air Force's Office of Special Tactics appeared. He was older, gray at the temples, skin like parchment. Lieutenant Voss, he said, stepping forward. Welcome home. Kara didn't answer. She stared at him with the kind of loathing Ridge had never seen from her before. The major gestured toward the hangar. We'll take it from here. She's not going in alone. Ridge said. She is, the Major replied. You'll be debriefed separately. No, Kara said. He goes where I go. The Major looked amused. That's not how this works. It is now. There was a moment where everything teetered. Ridge could feel it. Agents adjusting stances. Hands drifting toward weapons. The weight of command and secrets and betrayal hanging in the air like charged particles. Then the Major relented. Fine, but if either of you steps out of line, you'll both disappear faster than this base's last blueprint. Inside the hangar, the debrief room was brutal metal chairs, concrete walls, no windows. Kara sat on one side of the table. Ridge sat beside her. Opposite them, 2 men in suits, 2 in uniform, 1 tech operator recording every word. They started soft. Where had she been? What had she seen? Who had helped her? Then came the hard questions. Names, locations, motivations. Kara held nothing back. For 3 hours, she laid out everything. A rogue network embedded in military supply chains, trafficking. Prototype technology to the highest bidder. Retired generals acting as brokers. Engineers paid off to create intentional vulnerabilities. A secret buyer codenamed Iron Hand, pulling strings from the shadows, stockpiling experimental weapons for a false flag operation meant to destabilize NATO and trigger global response. The aircraft she'd stolen wasn't enemy-made. It was a U.S.-built hybrid, modified overseas, piloted once by someone who died trying to deliver the same truth. Kara found the wreckage, salvaged it, rebuilt the systems, and finished the mission that cost him his life. She faked her death, burned her tracker, and became a ghost. A myth. Until now. The room was dead silent when she finished. One of the men in suits stood up, whispered something to another, and left the room with the data drive. Ridge looked over at Kara. Her face was unreadable. You did everything right, he said softly. She didn't answer for a long time. I did what had to be done, she said finally. Right doesn't always factor in. An hour later, they were split up. Ridge was taken to a separate facility for processing. Kara was escorted to a classified bunker. Before they parted, she grabbed his arm. Thank you, she said, for believing me. Always, he said. They didn't know then that her testimony would disappear behind top clearance, that her name would never reappear in the system, that the drive would spark a silent war behind polished doors. But Ridge knew. What most didn't. Shadowhawk wasn't dead. She was flying higher than ever deep, in the shadows, and she had just started the reckoning. Captain Eli Ridge Carter stood inside a holding room, the size of a janitor's closet. Concrete walls. One chair bolted to the floor. A flickering fluorescent tube buzzed above him. No windows, no clock. He didn't know how long he'd been inside, only that Kara was somewhere else, probably underground facing. People who didn't want the truth she carried to ever see daylight. They had separated them right after the initial debrief. Took her to a secure zone beneath the facility, sealed off with steel and retinal scanners. Ridge had tried to follow. The guards had not been gentle about correcting his course. Now he waited. His fists clenched every few minutes, unprompted. A muscle memory triggered by frustration. He had broken protocol, lied to command, disobeyed a direct order to stand down. Those things didn't just disappear in the military. They left scars on your record deep enough to bleed your entire career dry. But he didn't care. She was alive. And what she brought back, what she risked her life to deliver mattered more than any medal or mission log. Finally, the door opened. A tall woman in an Air Force major's uniform stepped inside, holding a tablet. Her hair was sharp as a combat bootlace, her expression made of stone. Captain Carter, she said without preamble. Walk with me. He stood and followed her out, past a narrow corridor that twisted downward. No elevators, no signage. Just dull gray corridors leading to places no one talked about. Eventually, they reached a soundproofed observation room. With one-way glass. Kara sat alone on the other side. No cuffs, but she might as well have been shackled by silence. 4 officials flanked her, 3 men, 1 woman, all wearing suits without insignia. Intelligence operatives, no doubt. Langley ghosts. They're running her through the ringer, the major said. Trying to verify what she's brought. Cross-checking with satellite feeds, signal intelligence, anything that matches. It'll match, Ridge said. She wouldn't have come back unless it did. Not the point, the major replied. The point is who it implicates. You don't walk in from the dead with a smoking gun unless you're ready for fire. Ridge stared. Through the glass. Kara hadn't looked up once. They're not just questioning her. They're trying to break her. The major gave a small, reluctant nod. If even half of what's on that drive is legitimate, it means high-level treason. And the people capable of that kind of betrayal don't sit still while we connect the dots. She turned toward him. And if you think flying her in here puts you above this, think again. You're part of this now. Ridge crossed his arms. Good. I want to be. The major gave a humorless smirk and turned away. In the chamber. Kara's eyes finally flicked upward. Her voice was ragged from hours of interrogation, but her will hadn't cracked. Not yet. You think I came back here on a joyride? She was saying, I've eaten dirt, slept with a loaded pistol under my ribs, flown half dead across 3 continents, just to deliver what you see as an inconvenience. One of the agents leaned forward. And yet you didn't come through official channels, because official channels are compromised, she snapped. You think I don't know what happens to people who know too much? I was one of them. The woman agent tapped. The folder in front of her. You were confirmed Kia, presumed dead in hostile territory. Your reappearance raises flags, not just because of what you claim, but how you survived. I survived because I had to, Kara replied. Because if I didn't, that drive would never get here. And you'd all be chasing shadows. Wow. The real threat builds weapons with your stolen research. One of the men folded his arms. Who is Iron Hand? I don't know the identity. But the communications I intercepted trace back to a black cell using Pentagon access codes. Someone high up is feeding them intel and hardware. That person or group has already tested next-gen drones over conflict zones and blamed it on other states. If they succeed, the next attack will spark a global retaliation. A long silence followed. Then, and you're the only one who can prove this? I'm the only one who did. Upstairs, Ridge was escorted to a second room this time, with a table and a camera pointed directly at his face. A new officer entered. Rank unclear, name tag missing. He tossed a folder onto the table. Captain Carter, he began. You received an unauthorized transmission. Defied NORE orders. Interfered with national airspace protocol. Care to explain why? Ridge leaned back in the chair, unfazed. Because that transmission saved lives. You don't know that yet. I know who I flew with. I know Kara Voss. I know her voice, her methods, her mission focus. And I know the kind of lies it takes to erase someone like her. The man leaned forward. You're defending a rogue operative in possession of classified technology. If she had failed to deliver credible evidence, you'd be standing trial. You still might. I'll stand wherever I have to. But you better start listening. Because if she's right, and she is, you're sitting on a time bomb. The officer stared at him, unreadable dot, and he picked up the folder and walked out. Downstairs, Kara was led to a private quarters bare, but clean. A cot, a desk, a mirror. The door shut behind her with a mechanical clank. She sat, exhausted, hands trembling now that no one was watching. She pulled out the folded photo from her boot, an old snapshot of her, Ridge, and their original squadron, taken in better days, before the mission that changed everything. She stared at it long and hard, then whispered, "Burn forward." She didn't know what would come next, but she was done running. The early morning desert air was cold and clean, silent except for the faint hum of ventilation units buried beneath the sand. Inside the Groom Lake facility, Captain Eli Ridge Carter sat in a dimly lit conference room, eyes red from lack of sleep, hands folded in front of him. No one had told him what time it was. He had no phone, no watch, and no sense of how long he'd been trapped in the loop of waiting, but he was no longer angry. He was focused, because just below him, Kara Voss Shadowhawk was rewriting history in the most dangerous place on Earth. Moment she walked back into the classified world, everything started shifting. Secure channels went live. People with stars on their collars and no public profiles were suddenly arriving in unmarked transports. A Colonel Ridge had never seen in the flesh, but recognized from redacted dossiers, walked past the holding bay. That meant one thing. Her intel was real, and it terrified them. Ridge heard the rumors forming as echoes in the air. Kara had cracked something foundational. It wasn't just that advanced tech had been leaked. It was who had done the leaking and why. She hadn't come back to make noise. She came to set off an earthquake. Deep underground, Kara sat at a terminal flanked by two techs and a grim-faced intelligence officer who never blinked. A portable server array hummed quietly, digesting the contents of the drive she'd carried across continents. On the screen were flight logs from tests, facilities that weren't supposed to exist, schematics of hybrid weapon systems, chain of custody, documents with forged authorizations, audio clips, conversations, names. And one name Cody named Iron Hand kept reappearing. Kara leaned in. Search all known communications with this identifier. Focus on encrypted but intercepted airband relays from the last 18 months. One of the techs looked at the officer, who nodded reluctantly. They began digging. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Suddenly, a result popped up. A filtered voice. One she knew by its cadence, even through distortion. The message was simple. Asset retrieved. Shadowhawk compromised. Eliminate link before exfil. Project Crownfire remains green. Kara's jaw tightened. That message had been sent 36 hours before she reached U.S. airspace. They had known she was coming. And someone at the highest levels had greenlit her destruction. Someone within reach of a U.S. defense communications array. Project Crownfire? The tech whispered. That's not even on the books. It is now, Kara said grimly. Above ground, Ridge was finally allowed into a briefing room with a two-star general he'd never met before. The man's voice was polite. Too polite. Like a doctor about to diagnose something terminal. You understand the position you're in, Captain? I do. You disobeyed direct orders. Intervened. In a national defense scenario. Escorted a hostile aircraft into secured U.S. airspace. I'd do it again. That's unfortunate, the general replied, because you might not get the choice. Ridge remained silent. The general tapped a folder labeled Carter, ELI Contingency. Ridge stared at it. That sounds like a threat. It's a fact. You've become part of a narrative that certain people would prefer to keep unwritten. Ridge leaned forward. Shadowhawk brought back something that could stop a war before it starts, or spark one. She's not your enemy. The general didn't respond. He merely closed the folder and stood. We're not the ones who decide what happens next. She gave you that drive because she trusted you. And now everyone wants to know. Why you? Ridge didn't flinch, because she knew I wouldn't flinch. Back. In her secured room, Kara washed her face with cold water and stared into the metal mirror. The shadows under her eyes made her look older, harder, but her gaze hadn't lost its edge. She opened her locker and removed the second drive, the one no one knew about. A backup, just in case. Reach had taught her that trick once. Always keep your truth in two places, one to give, one to live. She tucked the backup into a compartment in her boot lining and walked to the door. The sensor unlocked before she could knock. Two guards waited outside. "Major Grant wants to see you." One. Sighed, she nodded. "Lead the way." They took her to a windowless office deep in the command structure. Grant, the same woman who'd observed her debrief, sat behind the desk, her posture rigid, but not unfriendly. "I've seen the files," Grant said. "You've just implicated 5 high-clearance individuals, 2 of whom were considered national heroes. One runs a contractor firm working with NATO. The other has regular White House access. Both are compromised," Kara replied. "And that access means this could explode." "We're still verifying," Kara cut her off. "You don't need to verify. You need to contain." Grant studied her carefully. "And if we don't, then someone else will. The people they're working with don't care about borders or politics. They care about chaos. If Crownfire launches, you'll be dealing with a global weapons race built on American blueprints." There was a silence between them. Heavy, loaded. Then Grant spoke. "And what do you want, Lieutenant Voss?" Kara didn't hesitate. "I want to disappear again, on my own terms." Grant raised an eyebrow. "I gave you the intel," Kara said. "But the second I become a name in a press briefing, I'm a target. I want full amnesty, off-grid freedom, and the authority to intervene if Iron Hand resurfaces." Grant blinked. "You want autonomy?" "I want to finish what I started." Grant leaned back. "You think we can let a ghost fly free again?" Kara met her gaze. "You don't have a better option." Later that night, Ridge was escorted outside. Kara stood by a nondescript black SUV, arms crossed, dressed in civilian clothes, now flight suit gone, dog tags tucked away. He walked toward her. "They're letting you go?" he asked. "Under watch," she said, unofficially. "Off the books, but yeah." He shook his head. "They're scared of you." "Good," she replied. "They should be." They stood in silence for a moment, the cold desert wind sweeping past. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I was sure the moment I got back in the cockpit." She looked at him. "You saved my life, Ridge. You saved mine first." She reached into her coat and handed him something, a folded photo. The same squad photo she'd kept. "To every black op, every near-death escape. Keep it," she said, "just in case they try to erase me again." He took it and nodded. "Double quotes burned forward," she whispered, and then she was gone. The SUV vanished down a road that didn't exist on any map, disappearing into the horizon. But Ridge knew she wasn't running. She was hunting. The streets of Marrakesh pulsed with life. Mopeds zipped past fruit vendors. Neon lights flickered in Arabic above quiet tea houses. The smell of cumin, diesel, and orange blossoms blended into the thick desert air. Somewhere in the labyrinth of alleyways and rooftop patios, Kara Voss Shadowhawk sat beneath a rusting ceiling fan, sipping black coffee from a chipped porcelain cup. To the casual observer, she looked like a tourist. Headscarf loose, sunglasses low, backpack by her side. But Kara was hunting, and she had less time than ever. A contact was late. It made her uneasy. She never trusted meetings that started late, and trusted even less the ones that never happened at all. Across the cafe, she noticed a child pretending to fly a paper plane, darting in and out of view. On the surface, innocent. But when she saw the boy circle a third time, tracing the same pattern around her table, she stood up without finishing the coffee. They'd found her. She slipped into the alleys. navigating the twisting corridors like veins. It took her 2 turns and a market stall to ditch the first tail. The second was sloppier muscle-bound, in a cheap jacket pretending not to sweat. She cut left between 2 buildings, took the fire escape up, and leapt to the adjacent roof. 20 seconds later, she was watching him from above. She drew her suppressed pistol and waited. The moment he turned into the alley, she dropped down behind him like a ghost. "Tell me who sent you," she said, gun at his back. He froze. "You won't shoot me," he whispered in Arabic. "I've already died once," she answered. "On a bet?" "A beat." Then he whispered, "Crown fire. They're cleaning house." She knocked him unconscious, dragged him behind a rusted oil drum, and vanished into the shadows. Half a world away, Ridge stood before a joint security review board in Virginia. He wore his full dress blues, chest decorated, posture clean. The 3-star general at the head of the panel hadn't blinked once since Ridge entered. "We've reviewed the footage," said the general. "Your decision to disengage after receiving the call sign Shadowhawk was a clear violation of aerial protocol. In wartime, that alone could be court-martialed." "Yes, sir," Ridge replied, calm. "And yet your report was validated." Lieutenant Voss returned with classified materials that have since led to 3 arrests and 1 covert shutdown of a weapons facility in Romania. Ridge said nothing. The general leaned forward. "We have reason to believe she's gone rogue." Again. Ridge's jaw tightened. "She's not rogue. She's cleaning up the mess you couldn't." "Be careful, Captain," the general warned. "Defending her again may cost you more than your commission this time." Ridge stood straight. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" The general nodded once. "I don't regret a second of what I did. Caravas saved lives by breaking rules when those rules were designed to protect traitors. I'd rather be grounded with honor than airborne on a lie." Silence followed. Then the general turned to the others on the panel. "Dismissed." Ridge saluted and walked out. He didn't need their approval. He needed to find Kara, and he had a hunch where she'd go next. In a safe house overlooking the Adriatic Sea. Kara patched into a darknet channel using an encrypted laptop she'd built from scavenged military hardware. Her burner SIM pinged off 3 towers. Good enough noise to mask the real call. She connected. A familiar voice came through. Distorted, robotic. But she knew the cadence. "You shouldn't be using this channel," the voice said. "I need confirmation," Kara replied. "The iron. Hansel, has it moved out of Prague?" "Affirmative." "They've gone dark. 2 assets burned, 1 still in play. Last signal tagged in Bucharest. I need the location." A pause. "You're not cleared for this?" "I cleared myself," Kara said flatly. "Careful. They're watching your heat map. You're starting to glow." She terminated the call before the trace could complete. Bucharest. That meant Anton Fodor ex-Intel asset now turned. He was the missing link between Crownfire's supply chain and Iron Hand's weapons labs. She'd almost killed him 2 years ago. Should have pulled the trigger. This time, she wouldn't hesitate. 2 days later, Ridge walked through a NATO airfield in southern Italy. He wore civilian clothes now, stripped of insignia, but not of purpose. He knew Kara's patterns, where she refueled, where she hid, how she built trust in a world that fed on betrayal. He found a mechanic who remembered a woman matching her description. Fuel payment in cash, no name. No ID, but the tail number. Matched a small aircraft, registered out of Istanbul. She was moving southeast. He chartered a military ride under the guise of diplomatic transit. It wasn't official. And if he got caught, he'd vanish into a black site faster than paperwork could save him. But he had to get to her. Not to stop her. To back her up. In Bucharest, Kara tracked Fodor through a nightclub nestled between a university campus and an old communist block. Inside, Lasers danced through clouds of smoke, and bass rumbled through bones. She hated places like this too loud, too easy to die unnoticed. She moved like shadow through dancers and guards. Fodor sat in a private booth, surrounded by 2 guards and a woman who clearly didn't know who he really was. His face hadn't changed much. Arrogant, expensive, dangerous. She planted a microdrone on the back of his seat. Then she walked past and whispered, "You should have died in Riyadh." He froze. By the time his guard stood, she was gone, but the message had been sent. That night, Ridge entered Romania under fake credentials. He carried only a sidearm and the address of an old Romanian intelligence contact Kara once trusted. The man greeted him at the door without words, just a tired look and a nod. "She's already here," the contact said. "Where?" "Looking for ghosts." Ridge understood. They weren't just hunting people anymore. They were hunting the ideas that allowed Crownfire to exist unchecked, undocumented, and deadly. Fodor fled the nightclub the next night, paranoid. Kara let him run, feeding his fear. The micro-drone tracked his every move. When he finally entered the back door of an old chemical plant, she smiled. He wasn't just running. He was retreating to safety. That meant something important was inside. She called Ridge on a burner. "Found him," she said. "I'm 2 clicks out." "Bring charges." She hung up. No hellos. No goodbyes. Just war. They met on a rooftop overlooking the plant. Ridge handed her 2 shaped charges and an EMP coil. "Place the EMP before you detonate. If they're making drones here, we'll shut their brain off first." They split up. She entered from the west. He moved east. Inside, Crownfire personnel scrambled, prepping crates, powering down servers. The message had gotten through. Kara moved silently, planting charges, avoiding guards. Ridge watched from above, rifle aimed, marking movement. Then Kara found the server room. She uploaded a final payload from her backup drive, one that would trace every IP, every account linked to Crownfire across 5 countries. When she was done, she set the timer. 10 minutes. She met Ridge outside as the sirens began to wail. "You ready?" she asked. "More ready." They ran as the ground shook behind them. The fireball lit up the Romanian night, but the real explosion had just begun on servers, on screens, in embassies, and boardrooms. The world was about to see who the real enemy was. And Karavas wasn't done yet. The fireball over Bucharest made headlines: chemical plant explosion, accidental fire, possible sabotage, but the truth never made it to cable news. Not yet. Within 24 hours, Crownfire servers across Europe began to crash. Financial ties unraveled. Buried accounts in the Cayman Islands blinked into visibility. Purchase orders for components marked non-existent surface thermal batteries, synthetic stabilizers, cloaked avionics. Everyone tied to ghost companies backed by real names. 3 of those names belonged to U.S. generals. 2 to NATO advisors. 1. More chilling than the rest, had White House clearance. The world wasn't ready for that name. But Karavas was. In a private hangar in Serbia. She and Ridge stood in front of a matte black jet. Small, angular, silent. A stealth recon aircraft built from leftover DARPA blueprints. A ghost bird. They used to call it. Kara had flown it once, back when the world still believed she was dead. Now she was going to fly it again, right into the heart of the data. "Trail. Berlin's next," she said, securing her gear. "That's where the shell firms were registered." "You'll need backup," Ridge replied. She shook her head. "This flight can't be tracked. You go commercial. Enter from ground. I need to be inside before they realize the building's not just a front." He hated it, but he knew better than to argue. "You keep disappearing on me," he said. "Someone has to live long enough to tell the story." she replied, flashing a tired grin. Then she was airborne. Berlin. 1:12 a.m. Kara landed outside the city limits in an abandoned Soviet-era strip she'd used before. She disguised the jet beneath a decoy thermal tarp and trekked on foot toward an industrial zone on the outskirts of Spandau. The building in question bore no signage, no guards, just gray stone and windows that hadn't been washed in years. But behind those blank walls was the core financial server for Valderin Group, a fake shell company laundering millions for Project Crownfire. Kara used a thermal cutter to breach the side hatch. Inside, the silence was oppressive. No alarms, no motion sensors. Only the hum of outdated servers and faint echoes of a forgotten war. She moved fast, planting spyware, rerouting ports, accessing a local interface. Root server was on a local backup drive. Just like she'd hoped. No cloud backups. No remote tripwires. This wasn't just sloppiness. It was arrogance. She plugged in a stolen access key she'd retrieved from the chemical plant in Bucharest. The screen blinked to life, and there it was, rows of encrypted ledger entries, complete with shipping manifests, timestamps, initials. And worst of all, end-user data. She began copying, then her burner phone buzzed once. Unknown. Sender, they're on to you. Leave now. She didn't move. Then came a second message, untraceable. You can't stop this, Kara. We are the system. Her eyes narrowed. Not for long, she whispered. She pulled the hard drive and set a 5-minute melt command into the terminal. Let them chase ghosts. Ridge landed in Berlin later that day, met by an asset from Kara's old world. A man called Latch, with a stammering limp and a camera embedded in his left eye. He'd been burned by Crownfire years ago and survived. She's 3 steps ahead, Latch said, handing Ridge a flash drive. But she asked me to give you this. Says it'll lead you to the route. What's the route? Ridge asked. Latch's eyes hardened. The kill switch. While the Berlin server decayed into slag, Kara moved west, hiding in cargo trains and ghost line networks. She had what she needed: transaction logs that pointed to the final stage of Crownfire. Not weapons. Not funding. Launch. Protocols. Someone was preparing to activate the project at full scale. The endgame wasn't a single drone strike or rogue operative. It was mass deployment. Hundreds of autonomous aerial units built using stolen U.S. tech, enhanced with foreign AI and programmed with zero human oversight. They could fly into any airspace, strike without warning, and erase themselves on impact. And they were days from being launched. The location? Green Ridge Complex, Colorado. A private defense think tank masked as a university research wing. Kara had been there once before she disappeared. They had no idea she remembered the blueprints. Now it was time to make sure they never got to use them. Back at Groom Lake, in a room so secure even the walls had ears, General Grant stared at a monitor, watching the destruction Kara had left behind. Data flowed in like a tsunami, real-time leaks, intercepted messages, cross-matched identities. It was more than anyone could deny now. Activate Operation Firewake, she said. A colonel paled. That's a domestic protocol. She's heading to Green Ridge. And if she's right, we're sitting on a war crime waiting to happen. We either clean it up, or we end up on trial. The colonel nodded. And Ridge? Grant hesitated. Let him run. She'll need someone to catch her if she falls. In Colorado, under fake credentials, Kara entered the Green Ridge facility as Dr. Eliza Moorland, an identity she'd stolen from an attending cybersecurity guest. The real Eliza was currently tied up in a hotel suite with a note that said, "This isn't personal." Kara moved through the halls like she belonged there, wearing a lab coat, carrying a clipboard, nodding at every passerby. She reached the lower-level vaults just before noon. There, under biometric lockdown, sat the Project Helix command hub, the AI flight controller designed to launch the drones. She triggered a silent breach. The door clicked open. And inside, to her shock, sat General Miles Delacroix, retired, but not forgotten. He was the one with White House clearance. "I wondered when you'd show up," he said. "You always liked theatrics." Kara replied coldly. "I offered you a seat at this table once. You offered me silence in exchange for complicity." He stood. "You can't stop this, Kara. The world needs a new deterrent. One that doesn't ask permission." She raised her pistol. "The world needs accountability." Delacroix smiled. And then everything went black. When Kara woke, she was cuffed to a chair, her head pounding. The room was sterile. Lights flickered. A small screen flicked on across from her. Delacroix appeared. "Greenridge is a decoy," he said calmly. "The real launch is mobile. You're chasing ghosts." She said nothing. "But I wanted to thank you. You flushed out the weak links. We've consolidated now. The drones launch in 72 hours. He leaned in. "You won't stop it. You can't even find it." The screen went dark. Kara sat still, breathing steady. And then, from her sleeve, she clicked a small bead between her fingers. Microplasma lockpick. Ridge had taught her that trick. 30 minutes later, she walked out dressed as a medtech, carrying a duffel that wasn't hers. Inside was a prototype chip used to mask drone AI patterns. She couldn't stop the launch, but she could hijack it. She messaged Ridge. "They're going mobile. 72 hours. Meet me in Nevada." "Bring fire," he replied in less than a minute. "Already on my way." She looked toward the western sky. The endgame had begun. And if Crownfire wanted a war, they were about to get one. The black desert night stretched wide and endless beneath a sky heavy with stars. The Groom Lake runway glistened faintly in the moonlight, marked by scattered cones and the soft hum of security drones weaving patrols. Kara Voss arrived just after midnight, stepping from a nondescript van with a duffel slung over her shoulder. The weight inside wasn't just equipment, it was hope. The hope that she could turn the tide. Behind her, Eli Ridge Carter waited beside a matte black stealth jet, same model she'd flown before. His face was taut, tired, but resolute. They hadn't spoken since her extraction from Greenridge. But the silence was comfortable, understood. "Did you get the chip working?" he asked quietly. Kara pulled the duffel inside a nearby tent and unpacked a small device no bigger than a deck of cards. It scrambles drone control signals within a 10-mile radius. No one's tested this in a real environment yet. He studied the device. "If it works, it'll blind the whole Crownfire fleet and give us a window to find the launch command." They shared a grim smile. Inside the base's command center, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Military brass, intelligence officers, and cyber analysts huddled around glowing monitors showing live satellite feeds and signal intercepts. General Grant paced, phone pressed to her ear. "They're moving fast," she said. "Last ping was just east of Tonopah." She hung up. "Operation Firewake is no longer just data," she announced. "It's about to become kinetic." Outside, Ridge suited up and ran through pre-flight checks with methodical precision. Kara watched, every movement calibrated, every breath measured. She could feel the weight of what was coming. "This is more than a fight for survival," Ridge said. "It's a war for the soul of our skies." She nodded. "Ready to burn forward?" "Always." They climbed into the jet together. The engines hummed alive, reverberating beneath the cavernous hangar. The stealth jet slipped into the dark sky, like a shadow dissolving into the night. Kara took the controls, eyes sharp as ever, fingers dancing across the glass cockpit. Ridge monitored comms, tracking signals, alert for any sign of Crownfire's automated fleet. They flew low and fast, slicing through mountainous terrain, their mission clear: find and disable the mobile launch platform before the countdown hit. 0. An alert blared suddenly. Unidentified aerial units inbound. Ridge reported. Voice tight. Kara spotted them. Dozens of drone silhouettes cutting through the sky, black as smoke and fast as death. They're moving in, she said. To scramble the chip. She activated the device. A pulse spread through the skies. Drone signals flickered. For a heartbeat, the drones hesitated. Then some went dark, spiraling out of control. Others shifted course. But not all. One massive drone, bigger, faster, more lethal, broke formation and locked onto their jet. Ridge, they're locking weapons. He grabbed the countermeasures. Deploying flares. The jet twisted, the night sky streaking past as they dodged missile fire. Kara's hands were steady, heart racing. Come on. With a flash, the countermeasure hit. Missiles exploded, harmlessly behind. The massive drone surged again. They raced toward a valley lined with jagged cliffs. Possible launch site. Ridge said. Kara dove low, the jet's stealth coating shimmering faintly against the dark rock. Below, they spotted a convoy trucks, mobile missile platforms, command vehicles. The launch was already underway. She keyed the mic. This is Shadowhawk. Request immediate air support. Static. No reply. Her heart sank. Commands jammed. Comes. Ridge said grimly. They were alone. Kara prepared the jet's onboard arsenal. Time to bring the thunder. They unleashed precision strikes, disabling vehicles, igniting fuel tanks, sending clouds of dust and fire into the air. But the drones weren't done. From above, the massive drone reappeared, locking on again. This is it, Kara said. Danced through the sky, a deadly ballet of missiles, speed, and machine. Ridge targeted the drone's weak points. On your left? Kara banked hard, firing the jet's railguns. The drone exploded in a fiery bloom. Silence. Suddenly, a voice crackled over comms. Shadowhawk, this is Major Grant. Extraction inbound. Coordinates incoming. Kara exhaled. We're not out yet. They rendezvoused with a team of helicopters, loading the chip and recovered data drives aboard under heavy guard. As dawn broke, they watched the desert burn behind them, a pyre for the lies Crownfire had built. Back at Groom Lake, Kara and Ridge faced a subdued crowd of commanders and analysts. You did what no one thought possible, General Grant said. Justice isn't a clean mission, Kara replied, but it's the only one worth fighting. Ridge smiled faintly. Sometimes you have to fly through the storm to find the sky. Weeks later, congressional hearings revealed sanitized details about Crownfire. Names were redacted, threats downplayed, but Kara and Ridge knew the truth. Had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. Shadowhawk's call sign returned to the skies not just as a warning, but a promise, because some wars are fought in silence, and some heroes fly forever in the shadows. The end.